What truly makes a person finally stand up against corruption? Is it courage, born from an inner fire? Is it desperation, born from having nothing left to lose? Or is it simply a quiet, unwavering moral compass that refuses to bend, no matter the pressure? In Harmony Creek, it started with one man, Elias "Pop" Johnson, a Vietnam veteran, his hands stained with the honest grease of decades, who refused to bow to corrupt authority. He remembered what he'd fought for, the principles he bled for, and that single phone call, made in a jail cell, was a desperate plea for justice that brought an unstoppable force home. For decades, Harmony Creek had been a town where you knew your neighbors by their first names, where a handshake was as good as a contract, and where the aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the scent of pine from the surrounding forests. But beneath that veneer of small-town charm, a slow, insidious rot had begun to spread. It wasn't loud like a sudden explosion, but quiet, like mold creeping up a damp wall, slowly, silently suffocating the very breath from its inhabitants. And at the heart of this decaying dream stood a man who refused to rot. This was Elias "Pop" Johnson, a man whose hands, though gnarled with age, still possessed the unwavering strength of a craftsman and the gentle touch of a healer. 78 years young, a black Vietnam veteran who carried the weight of service not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. His canvas? Johnson's honest auto, nestled on the edge of Harmony Creek's forgotten Main Street. It wasn't just a garage, it was a sanctuary. The air inside always smelled of high-octane passion, of metallic resolve, and the faint, comforting scent of old leather from the worn armchair in the corner, where Pop often shared wisdom, not just repair estimates. The walls of Johnson's honest auto were a living testament to a life well lived. Faded photographs lined the pegboards, nestled between hanging wrenches and spare parts. There were grainy black and white shots of young Elias in fatigues, standing tall alongside his comrades in the jungles of Vietnam. Men who had faced true fire, true danger. There were sepia-toned images of his late wife, Lena, her smile as bright as a summer morning, and pictures of his son, Marcus, first as a mischievous boy, then as a sharp-suited young man embarking on his own path. Each photo a silent echo of a life built on grit, integrity, and an unshakable belief in doing what's right. Pop's mornings began before the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon. While most of Harmony Creek still slept, the familiar clang of the metal garage door rolling open would cut through the quiet. He'd wipe down the grease-stained counter, arrange his tools with almost ceremonial precision, and then, with a well-worn mug of strong black coffee in hand, he'd step outside to greet the awakening town. Early birds, often factory workers or farmers, would already be pulling up, their engines sputtering or lights dim. Pop knew their vehicles like they were his own, diagnosing most problems by the unique cough or hum of an engine, a skill honed over 55 years of fixing cars. He'd bet his bronze star on it. He wasn't just fixing cars, he was fixing lives, one engine at a time. Pop understood that a reliable vehicle wasn't a luxury in Harmony Creek, it was a lifeline. He was the kind of man who'd work late into the night for a single mother struggling to make ends meet, telling her to pay him when you can. He'd lend a hand, a tool, or even a sympathetic ear to anyone who walked through his doors. His reputation for fairness, for honesty, for simply being good was the true currency of Johnson's honest auto. He was the last bastion of true honor in a town that was slowly, imperceptibly, losing its soul. But the rising sun over Harmony Creek no longer brought only the promise of a new day. Lately, it had been casting long, unwelcome shadows. The shadow of a new kind of authority that had taken root in the town's police department. And the darkest of those shadows belonged to Officer Sterling Thorne. He wasn't like the old town cops, the ones who knew your grandma and gave kids rides in their cruisers. Thorne was pure menace, his presence like a cold front settling over the town. His eyes, perpetually narrowed, scanned not for danger, but for vulnerability. His smile, when it appeared, was more of a sneer. One Tuesday morning, the air in Pop's shop, usually thick with the comforting scent of oil, was pierced by the acrid smell of arrogance. Thorne swaggered in, not for a repair, but for a shakedown. "Old man," he drawled, his voice thick with condescension. we're doing a new community safety initiative. Basically, if you want your little grease pit here to stay open, there's a monthly fee for safety upgrades. Think of it as a neighborhood watch, only we're watching you." Pop, his hands still wiping grease from a carburetor, merely looked up, his gaze steady, unwavering. "Officer," he said, his voice as calm as a still lake, "I've been running an honest business here for over half a century. I've never needed protection from my community, and I certainly don't need it from those sworn to protect it." He placed the wrench down, the sound a quiet but firm punctuation mark. "I've fought for this country, son. I don't pay bullies." Thorne's face hardened, his smirk vanishing. "That's a real nice way of saying no, Pop. Let's see how honest your shop looks when the health inspector, the fire marshal and zoning all decide to pay a visit. Funny how those things tend to happen when folks don't cooperate." He sauntered out, leaving behind a chilling silence. And cooperate, Pop did not. The harassment began subtly, then escalated. Bogus citations for dust on the shelves, for a misplaced fire extinguisher, for a faded sign. Then came the loitering patrols. Thorne's cruiser parked conspicuously outside Johnson's Honest Auto day after day, turning away customers who feared guilt by association. Pop, though tired, met each new obstacle with quiet defiance. He cleaned, he organized, he replaced, burning through his meager savings to comply with absurd demands. He was a veteran of a different kind of war, and he knew how to endure. But even the strongest oak can be worn down by a relentless storm. The final blow came not from a fine, but from a betrayal of trust. Thorne, desperate to break Pop, orchestrated a malicious fabrication. He planted a baggie of what looked like illicit drugs in a corner of Pop's storage room during a random inspection, then found it with dramatic flair. "Found it, old man, possession with intent to distribute. Looks like your Honest Auto shop has a few dirty secrets, huh?" Thorne's voice was laced with triumph. Pop's blood ran cold. The sheer audacity, the blatant fabrication, his hands clenched, his heart a drum of fury and disbelief. You planted that," he rasped, his voice raw with disbelief. Thorne just smiled, a cruel, victorious baring of teeth. "Doesn't matter what I did, old man. Only matters what we found. You're going downtown." The handcuffs felt like icy shackles, not just on his wrists, but on his very soul. As Thorne roughly shoved him into the back of the cruiser, Pop caught a glimpse of his shop through the tinted windows. The lights were still on, casting a warm, lonely glow on the empty street. It looked like a tomb, a grave for everything he had built, everything he believed in. In the cold, sterile confines of the Harmony Creek jail cell, Elias Johnson, the man who had faced down Viet Cong and weathered a lifetime of hardships, finally felt the sting of tears. Not for himself, but for the corruption that was eating away at the very fabric of his beloved town, at the dreams of his neighbors. He remembered the oath he took, the flag he saluted, the principles he believed this nation stood for, and now, in a quiet American town, he was imprisoned by the very uniform that was supposed to uphold justice. He picked up the phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed a number ingrained in his memory. It wasn't the number of a lawyer, they'd just be swallowed by this system. It wasn't a plea for help. It was a call to the only person he knew who could truly cut through this toxic web, a person forged in a different kind of fire. It wasn't a call for help, Pop whispered to himself, his voice raspy. It was a call for retribution. A call for a justice that only a shadow could deliver. His son Marcus, the one known as Shadow, was about to learn a lesson Pop had taught him long ago. You never back down from a bully, and when a Johnson fights, he fights to win. The world was about to discover what happens when a living legend comes home and finds his father behind bars. Thousands of miles away from the quiet despair of Harmony Creek, in a world painted in shades of sand and shadows, Commander Marcus Johnson moved with the lethal grace of a predator. Here, amidst the unforgiving vastness of the desert, he was not just Marcus, he was Shadow. A name whispered with reverence by allies and dread by enemies, a legend forged in the crucible of countless unseen battles, a commander of Delta Force, an elite warrior unit whose very existence was a classified secret. His current mission was a symphony of precision and peril, a high-value target, nestled deep within a fortified compound, held intelligence that could tip the scales of an ongoing global conflict. Marcus, cloaked in the obsidian night, led his team with the silent efficiency of a phantom. Every breath, every movement, every calculation was calibrated to perfection. He was a machine, finely tuned for one purpose: neutralization. His mind, a complex tapestry of tactical analysis and strategic foresight, left no room for error, no space for distraction. This was his life, the crucible in which his very being had been reforged after leaving Harmony Creek, after leaving the comforting scent of oil and honest labor. Then, a vibration, a single insistent ping from the secure satellite phone tucked into his tactical vest. In that moment, the world of sand and shadows, of high-stakes global politics, dissolved into a single, piercing thought. Only one person has this number for anything less than a national emergency. He moved a gloved hand to his ear, a silent signal to his team to hold position. The voice on the other end was raspy, strained, yet achingly familiar. It was his father, Elias. "Marcus," the voice crackled, barely a whisper. It's Pop. They got me. Harmony Creek PD. Planted something. I'm in a cell, son." In the absolute silence that followed, broken only by the distant hum of the helicopter, something within Marcus shifted. The icy calm that usually encased him, the impenetrable focus of shadow, cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough for a wave of raw, unfiltered emotion to surge through. His father, Pop, the man who had taught him honor, who had shown him the value of hard work, who had patched up his scraped knees and lectured him about doing what was right. That man, a 78-year-old veteran, was in a jail cell, accused of crimes he would never commit. The absurdity of it, the sheer injustice, hit him with the force of a physical blow. He quickly gave concise, whispered orders to his second-in-command, a seasoned operative who understood Marcus's rare moments of intensity. "Take point. Proceed as planned. I'm compromised. Handle it. Report to HQ." His voice, though low, carried an undeniable authority, a chilling undertone that promised swift, severe consequences for any deviation. He wouldn't be leading this breach. His war had just changed fronts. The weight of the name Shadow was immense. It wasn't just a code name, it was a reputation, a living legend. It meant a mastery of stealth, a genius for strategy, an unparalleled ability to infiltrate the impenetrable and dismantle the seemingly indomitable. He had spent years in the shadows making the impossible possible. He had faced down terrorist cells, dismantled international crime syndicates, and navigated geopolitical minefields with lethal grace. But this was different. This was personal. This was his family. The journey home was a blur of high-speed logistics and clandestine transfers. A private jet from a covert airbase, a quiet landing at a remote airstrip, a black, unmarked SUV waiting. Every step was a testament to the vast, unseen network at his disposal, a network built on years of trust, favors, and unwavering loyalty from those who knew what Shadow was capable of. The very resources he used to protect a nation, he was now bending to protect his family. As he drove into Harmony Creek, the contrast was jarring. One moment, he was in a world of high-stakes combat, where life and death hung in the balance of every decision. The next, he was in a town that seemed to be slowly strangling on its own rot. The carefully manicured lawns of the town square seemed a little less green, the storefronts a little more vacant, the faces of the people a little more downcast. He saw police cruisers patrolling with an almost aggressive visibility, their presence not reassuring but oppressive. He saw fear in the darting eyes of passers-by, who quickly looked away when a police car approached. It was a subtle fear, ingrained over time, but to Marcus's trained eyes, it was as clear as a battle scar. Harmony Creek wasn't just a town, it was a captive. He made his way to the jail, sidestepping the official channels, using his own methods. He found his father in a small, stark cell, his silhouette against the dim light, looking smaller than Marcus remembered. Pop's eyes, usually so vibrant, held a weary resignation, but when he saw Marcus, a flicker of something fierce ignited within them. "Son," Pop rasped, a single solitary word that carried a lifetime of unspoken meaning. Marcus simply nodded, his face a mask of grim determination. "They won't keep you here, Pop." His voice was low, resonating with a steel that promised retribution. Pop looked at him, truly looked at him, his gaze piercing. "Make this right, son," he said, not as a request but as a quiet demand, a passing of the torch. "For all of us. This ain't just about me anymore." Marcus didn't need to speak. The silent vow was made. He watched the jailer escort his father away, a chilling calm settling over him. He wasn't just here to clear his father's name. He was here to excise a cancer. His military training immediately kicked in. This wasn't a random act of police brutality, it was systemic. He began his assessment not with anger but with the cold, calculating precision of a strategist mapping an enemy's fortress. Who was Officer Thorne? Who was he connected to? Who held the real power in Harmony Creek? Every conversation he overheard, every local news report, every glance he intercepted became a piece of the puzzle. He saw the threads of corruption weaving through the police department, stretching up to the mayor's office and beyond. He felt the cold, calculating presence of something larger, something more sinister pulling the strings. Thorne was just a blunt instrument. There was a puppet master orchestrating this quiet terror, and Shadow was about to cut those strings one by one until the entire corrupt edifice crumbled. The ghost had returned to Harmony Creek, and the shadows were about to get a whole lot darker for those who reveled in injustice. The game had just begun. Marcus Johnson didn't operate on impulse, not even when fury burned in his gut. His training had honed his instincts into precision tools, teaching him that true power lay not in brute force, but in meticulous preparation. He was Shadow for a reason. He saw the world not as it appeared, but as it truly was, a network of connections, vulnerabilities, and unseen currents. And Harmony Creek, with its false peace and festering corruption, was now his next mission. His modus operandi was simple yet devastatingly effective. Gather, analyze, then strike with surgical precision. He didn't burst into the police station demanding answers. That was a rookie mistake. Instead, he vanished into the very fabric of Harmony Creek, becoming an unobserved observer. He spent days, then nights, watching, listening, piecing together the broken narrative of a town under siege. He moved like a whisper through alleys, observed from parked cars and listened through walls. He noted the anxious whispers of shopkeepers, the hurried glances exchanged when a police cruiser drove by, the way certain officers seemed to gravitate towards specific businesses. He built a mental map of their habits, their weaknesses, their arrogance. But raw observation wasn't enough. He needed an inside track, a pulse on the department itself. And that's where Officer Lena Dubois entered his radar. Lena was young, barely out of the academy, and one of the few black officers on the force in Harmony Creek. Marcus had watched her. He'd seen the subtle flinch when Officer Thorne barked orders, the quiet disapproval in her eyes when her colleagues abused their power, the almost imperceptible hesitation before she followed a morally dubious directive. She was an idealist trapped in a corrupt system, a flicker of light in a growing darkness. Their first encounter wasn't a meeting, but a carefully orchestrated observation. Marcus, blending into the background of a local diner, watched Lena as she ate lunch alone, her face etched with a quiet burden. He then subtly dropped a secure, untraceable burner phone onto her car seat, a phone that contained a single, chilling audio file. It was a recording subtly altered to mask Marcus's voice, detailing Thorne's blatant shakedown of another small business owner, a single mother struggling to keep her bakery afloat. Lena's reaction, later observed from a distance, was exactly what Marcus had predicted. Shock, followed by disgust, then a flicker of desperate hope. He saw her furtively glance around, as if expecting to be watched. He knew then she was ready. She was ripe for an ally. Meanwhile, Marcus began his digital warfare. He bypassed the local police department's firewalls with chilling ease, his fingers dancing across the keyboard like a concert pianist. He accessed their internal servers, their financial records, their private communications. What he found was worse than he'd imagined. Not just Thorne, but an entire network. Chief Reynolds, a man whose face had become synonymous with law and order, in Harmony Creek was deeply enmeshed, his personal bank accounts swelling with unexplained deposits. And then the web stretched higher. towards the office of Mayor Evelyn Vance, a woman who presented herself as the town's benevolent leader, but whose digital footprint revealed a pattern of shell corporations and dubious land deals. But information wasn't power until it was wielded, and for that Marcus needed a public platform. Enter Amelia Millie Wright, the sharpest, most tenacious local investigative journalist Harmony Creek had. Millie had been barking up the wrong tree for years, sniffing around the corruption but always hitting dead ends, her articles often buried or dismissed by a heavily influenced local paper. Marcus saw her frustration, her raw hunger for truth. He began feeding her anonymous tips. Not sensational claims, but meticulously verified scraps of information, a specific time, a location, a car license plate, a snippet of a financial transaction, small, irrefutable details that she could confirm independently. He never revealed his identity, he simply signed off with Shadow. Millie, initially skeptical, quickly realized these tips were golden. She followed the leads, and each one, meticulously, began to unravel a thread in the town's tightly woven tapestry of lies. "Another one, Shadow," Millie would whisper into her burner phone, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "The city council's accidental approval of that zoning variance? The one that benefits Mayor Vance's silent partner. You gave me the exact dates, the exact names. It's all there." Marcus was building a network of truth, an invisible hand guiding the narrative. He meticulously mapped out the hierarchy of corruption. Officer Thorne was merely the tip of the iceberg, the enforcer. Chief Reynolds was the protector, providing cover and silencing dissent. Mayor Vance was the strategist, weaving legal and political manipulation into a seamless web. But even Mayor Vance seemed to answer to someone else. There was a colder, more calculating presence that Marcus could feel, like a distant tremor. He didn't physically confront Thorne. Instead, he initiated a campaign of psychological warfare. Thorne's personal laptop, often left unsecured, would randomly display encrypted messages on his screen. "We see you, Thorne." His car radio would occasionally play a distorted recording of his own corrupt conversations. His phone would receive anonymous calls where only silence, heavy and knowing, greeted him. Thorne grew visibly paranoid, his arrogance replaced by a frantic, uneasy energy. He began to crack, snapping at his colleagues, making mistakes. Marcus observed this with grim satisfaction. The pawn was becoming unstable. Then came the accidental leak. Marcus, through a carefully timed tip, made sure Millie discovered irrefutable proof of Thorne skimming money from parking ticket fines. A small offense, but undeniable. Millie published it as an exposé on her independent blog, which was rapidly gaining traction. The public outcry was immediate. Chief Reynolds was forced to put Thorne on administrative leave, a public display that secretly sent tremors of fear through the corrupt ranks. If Thorne, the enforcer, could be touched, who was safe? But as Marcus delved deeper into Chief Reynolds' digital footprint, a shocking discovery emerged, a twisted knot in the seemingly straightforward web of corruption. Reynolds wasn't just a greedy chief, he was a man with a secret so damning it gave the true puppet masters immense leverage. Marcus uncovered a hidden file, a series of photos and encrypted communications detailing a horrific, years-old hit-and-run accident that Reynolds had covered up. An accident that involved his own son, a minor at the time, and had tragically killed a young family. The Crimson Hand Syndicate, the shadowy organization that controlled Mayor Vance, had quietly cleaned up the mess for Reynolds, burying the evidence and ensuring his son faced no consequences. In return, Reynolds became their loyal servant, their enforcer within the Harmony Creek PD. This wasn't just about greed, it was about blackmail. Chief Reynolds wasn't just a perpetrator, he was also a victim, trapped by his own terrible secret. This revelation solidified Marcus's strategy. He wouldn't just expose, he would dismantle the entire coercive structure. He would free the trapped, even if they were complicit, to truly bring down the architects of this insidious system. The game had just changed. It was no longer just about justice for Pop. It was about freeing Harmony Creek from a far more sinister and deeply rooted evil. The Shadow was no longer merely unveiling the truth. He was preparing to unleash a storm. and the first drops were about to fall. As Marcus Shadow Johnson peeled back the layers of corruption in Harmony Creek, the true chilling scale of the problem began to emerge. Officer Thorne was a thug, Chief Reynolds a desperate, compromised pawn. Even Mayor Vance, with her polished veneer and intricate lies, was merely a well-placed piece on a much larger, more sinister chessboard. This wasn't just local corruption. This was a deep, pervasive malignancy, a parasitic entity that had burrowed its way into the very heart of communities across the region. His intelligence, gathered through the silent hum of servers and the hushed whispers of informants, pointed to a name that sent a shiver down even Marcus's hardened spine: the Crimson Hand Syndicate. This wasn't a street gang. It was a ghost of an organization, operating with chilling precision, its tentacles reaching into every illicit enterprise imaginable: money laundering, illicit gambling rings, massive drug trafficking operations, and, most insidious of all, political influence peddling that bought them control over local law enforcement and city councils. Harmony Creek was just one small, profitable cog in their vast, brutal machine. At the top of this dark pyramid sat a figure known only as Elias the Architect. Thorne, no relation to the pathetic Officer Thorne the Architect, was a phantom, rarely seen, never touched. He orchestrated his empire from the shadows, his brilliance for strategy matched only by his absolute ruthlessness. He dealt not in brute force, but in information, in leverage, in the precise application of fear. He was a spider weaving an invisible web, catching anyone foolish enough to stumble into its sticky strands. Marcus had seen the digital fingerprints of many masterminds in his career, but the architect's signature was disturbingly clean, almost artistic in its malevolence. The syndicate's operations were horrifyingly efficient. They identified vulnerable towns, infiltrated local government and law enforcement, then systematically drained them dry. They'd offer protection to businesses, but it was protection from them. They'd invest in local projects, which inevitably enriched their own pockets. They preyed on desperation, turning struggling towns into cash cows, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and shattered communities. But as Marcus dug deeper into the architect's meticulously concealed records, a cold knot formed in his stomach. A file, buried deep within encrypted servers, popped up. A series of old dusty property deeds, legal documents, and newspaper clippings. They detailed the tragic collapse of a small black-owned construction company in a neighboring county nearly 2 decades ago. A promising business known for its integrity and community work suddenly fell prey to a series of inexplicable financial collapses, crippling lawsuits, and mysterious accidents on their work sites. The company was forced to sell off its assets at fire sale prices, acquired, curiously, by a shell corporation traced back to the Crimson Hand Syndicate. And the name of that construction company? Johnson & Sons Construction. Adult, colder and sharper than any combat shock, ran through Marcus. This wasn't just a random act of the syndicate. This was his family, not Pop's auto shop, but an older, deeper wound. That construction company had belonged to Pop's brother, Marcus's Uncle Arthur, a man Marcus remembered only as a vibrant, laughing figure who had suddenly, inexplicably, lost everything and then faded into quiet despair. The accidents had never been fully explained. The lawsuits had always felt manufactured, and now Marcus knew why. The Crimson Hand Syndicate hadn't just crippled his uncle. They had broken his spirit, stealing his dream, and indirectly casting a shadow on his entire family, a shadow that stretched across decades. The analytical detachment that was Shadow's hallmark fractured. This wasn't just about justice for Pop and Harmony Creek anymore. This was a personal vendetta, reaching back to the root of a family's unspoken sorrow. Elias the Architect. Thorne hadn't just affected his father, he had touched the very foundations of his lineage. With this chilling discovery, Marcus's strategy shifted. He wouldn't just dismantle the syndicate, he would obliterate it, exposing every hidden layer. He would use their own arrogance, their own insatiable greed, against them. Marcus devised a trap of audacious complexity. He created a fictitious, highly profitable investment opportunity, a massive, multi-state land development deal in a neighboring, seemingly untapped rural area. Through Lena Dubois, who was now secretly acting as his trusted informant within the Harmony Creek PD, and whose own career path was being meticulously guided by Marcus to ensure her safety and future, he fed calculated tidbits of this opportunity in future. He fed a threat of tidbits of this opportunity into the police department's rumor mill, knowing Chief Reynolds, ever desperate for a slice of the pie, would carry it straight to Mayor Vance. Simultaneously, Marcus, using his unparalleled digital access, hacked into the Crimson Hand Syndicate's dark web forums and encrypted communication channels. He planted false trails, manipulated data, and created a web of digital breadcrumbs designed to lead the architect to believe that Mayor Vance and Chief Reynolds were attempting to cut him out of this lucrative new deal. He made it appear as if the local Harmony Creek branch was going rogue, attempting to secure a massive profit for themselves, untraceable from the main syndicate. He crafted forged documents, complete with meticulously faked signatures, outlining how Reynolds and Vance planned to skim billions. This was a calculated gamble, playing on the syndicate's most potent weaknesses, their insatiable greed and their paranoia about internal betrayals. He knew the architect wouldn't tolerate subordinates trying to circumvent him. He knew the allure of billions would be irresistible. The trap was set. Marcus, with the precision of a seasoned hunter, had drawn the architect out of his lair. Elias the architect, Thorne, the man who had pulled strings from the shadows for decades, was about to step into the harsh light of Harmony Creek. He believed he was coming to discipline rogue assets and seize a colossal fortune. He had no idea he was walking into a meticulously constructed cage, built by the very shadow he unknowingly wronged decades ago. The puppet master was about to meet the puppet who refused to dance, the son of a man he once sought to crush, and the avenger of a family he thought he'd long since silenced. The true reckoning was about to begin. In the aftermath of Shadow's meticulously executed plan, Harmony Creek exhaled. The tension that had held the town captive for years, a suffocating blanket of fear and silence, finally lifted. The air seemed lighter, the sky a brighter blue. The fall of the Crimson Hand Syndicate was swift and absolute. A domino effect triggered by the very first domino Marcus had pushed, the exposure of Officer Thorne. The arrests came in waves. Officer Thorne, Chief Reynolds and Mayor Vance were apprehended within hours of the architect's capture, their faces pale with shock and disbelief as the full weight of federal charges descended upon them. The local jail, once a symbol of their oppressive power, now became their temporary cage. The moment Pop Johnson walked out of that jail cell was etched into the collective memory of Harmony Creek. It wasn't a triumphant march, but a quiet, dignified walk. His eyes, still tired, held a newfound spark of vindication. Marcus was there, waiting, his usual stoicism replaced by a rare, almost imperceptible softening in his gaze. He didn't embrace his father with a grand gesture. Instead, he simply placed a hand on Pop's shoulder, a silent testament to a bond forged in loyalty and tempered by fire. Pop looked up at his son, a small, knowing smile gracing his lips. "You made it right, son," he whispered, a lifetime of pride in those 3 words. Marcus simply nodded, the slightest of smiles playing on his lips, a rare glimpse beneath the shadow persona. The trials that followed were swift, decisive and damning. The evidence Marcus had meticulously gathered, the hacked communications, the financial ledgers, the damning confessions of Chief Reynolds who, freed from the architect's blackmail, provided crucial testimony in exchange for a plea deal, painted an irrefutable picture of rampant corruption. Officer Lena Dubois, her conscience now unburdened and her courage ignited by Marcus's quiet leadership, delivered powerful testimony, detailing the daily abuses and the pressure to comply. Emilia Wright, now a national sensation, had her meticulous reports become cornerstone exhibits. Justice, long denied, finally came to Harmony Creek. Thorne, Reynolds, Vance, and even the elusive Elias, the architect, Thorne were convicted on multiple counts, facing decades behind bars. Their empires of greed and fear crumbled into dust. But the true rebirth of Harmony Creek wasn't just about punishment, it was about healing. The morning after the final verdicts, a wave of unprecedented support washed over Johnson's Honest Auto. People lined up, not just for repairs, but to offer help. Neighbors brought food, volunteers offered to clean and paint, local businesses donated supplies. They knew this wasn't just about Pop's shop, it was about their own souls. It was a tangible symbol of reclaiming their town, of spitting in the face of the fear that had held them captive for so long. The aroma of grease and oil now mingled with the scent of fresh paint and renewed hope. And here lies a profound lesson. The deepest scars left by corruption aren't just financial, they are etched onto the community's spirit, eroding trust, stifling dreams, and breeding quiet despair. For too long, the people of Harmony Creek had tolerated the intolerable, choosing silence over confrontation, fear over freedom. They had watched their neighbors suffer, their businesses dwindle, their faith in authority slowly erode. The cost of that silence was immeasurable. It allowed the cancerous growth of the syndicate to metastasize, almost unchecked. In the wake of Chief Reynolds's imprisonment, Officer Lena Dubois was appointed acting chief of the Harmony Creek Police Department. It wasn't an easy transition. The department was fractured, its trust in tatters. Lena faced skepticism from the community and quiet resentment from some of the remaining officers. But she approached the task with the same quiet determination Marcus had seen in her from the beginning. She initiated rigorous retraining, emphasized community policing, and established transparent reporting mechanisms. She knew rebuilding trust would take years, not months, but she was committed. She was the living embodiment of the fact that even within a corrupted system, there were individuals who yearned for justice, who simply needed a catalyst, a glimpse of possibility, to find their voice. Amelia Millie Wright's story, once confined to a local blog, went national. Her exposé on the Crimson Hand Syndicate's regional operations, fueled by Marcus's anonymous leads, won her accolades and national recognition. She became a beacon of journalistic integrity, using her newfound platform to shine a light on similar forgotten towns, forgotten people, who were battling their own silent wars against unseen puppet masters. She'd proved that the pen, when guided by courage, could indeed be mightier than the sword, or the corrupt badge. Harmony Creek slowly began to heal. The empty storefronts found new life, infused with the fresh energy of entrepreneurs no longer burdened by protection fees. Children played in the streets with a newfound innocence. Laughter, once rare, now echoed through the town square. It wasn't a magical transformation. The scars remained, reminding them of what they had endured, but those scars also served as a powerful reminder of their resilience, of the power of a single spark to ignite a revolution. Pop Johnson, back at Johnson's Honest Auto, surveyed his bustling shop. It was more than just a business now, it was a monument to tenacity, a living testament to the fact that integrity, no matter how threatened, could never truly be defeated. He often told his customers, sometimes the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't a badge or a gun. It's the simple courage to say no. He looked at the old photographs on his wall, of his comrades, of Lena, of a young Marcus. He knew his son had delivered justice not just for him but for countless others. As Harmony Creek slowly rebuilt, a single black vehicle would occasionally pass through its quiet streets late at night, driven by a man whose face remained unseen. He would observe the town's slow return to normalcy, a silent satisfaction in his eyes. His mission in Harmony Creek was complete, but his greater purpose remained. He was Shadow, and his work was far from over. The sun was rising on a new Harmony Creek, but in the shadows, elsewhere, other battles were still raging, and Shadow was already on the move. Harmony Creek had breathed again. The shadows of corruption, once long and suffocating, had receded, replaced by the burgeoning light of hope and genuine community. Elias Pop Johnson's auto shop was thriving, a living testament to defiance and the enduring spirit of good. Lena Dubois was meticulously, patiently rebuilding trust within the police force, brick by painstaking brick. Amelia Wright's voice echoed across the nation, an unstoppable force for truth. But as the days turned into weeks and Harmony Creek slowly found its footing, Marcus Shadow Johnson did not linger. His purpose, his very essence, was not to bask in the glow of victory, but to pursue the darkness wherever it festered. Harmony Creek was a battle won, a critical objective secured, but it was far from the end of his war. He moved with the same ghost-like efficiency he had shown upon his arrival. His goodbyes were brief, almost imperceptible. A firm handshake with Pop, a shared, knowing glance with Lena, a single, unreadable nod to Amelia. He left Harmony Creek in capable hands, knowing the seeds of justice he had planted would continue to grow, tended by the very people he had empowered. His mission was far from over. The Crimson Hand Syndicate, though decapitated in Harmony Creek, was a hydra. Cut off one head and another would inevitably rise elsewhere. Marcus knew this not from theory, but from the brutal lessons of a lifetime spent in the shadows. His intelligence network, still humming with activity, was already feeding him new coordinates, new names, new towns, suffocating under similar unseen pressures, from the forgotten mining towns in Appalachia to the sprawling suburbs plagued by organized crime. The fight for fundamental fairness was eternal. This is the unspoken burden of true heroism. The fight rarely ends. It shifts, it evolves, but it demands constant vigilance. Marcus was Shadow, a force for justice that operated beyond borders, beyond jurisdictions. He was the unsung hero, the quiet avenger who worked where others couldn't or wouldn't. He didn't seek recognition, accolades, or even gratitude. His payment was the quiet, profound satisfaction of tipping the scales back towards balance, of giving a voice to the voiceless and a chance to the downtrodden. His life was one of constant motion, of calculated risk, of perpetual isolation. The weight of his code, the burden of his skills, meant a life often solitary, disconnected from the comforting rhythms of normal existence. He carried the scars of countless battles, not all of them visible. Yet, in that solitude, he found a profound purpose. He was driven by the memory of his uncle's shattered dreams, by his father's quiet dignity, and by the sheer, unyielding belief that everyone deserved to live free from tyranny, no matter how subtle. The Harmony Creek story, amplified by Amelia's national platform, had a ripple effect. It wasn't just a news item, it was an awakening. People in other towns, emboldened by the victory against the Crimson Hand Syndicate, began reaching out. They shared their own stories of intimidation, of quiet extortion, of political maneuvering that had choked their communities. Amelia's inbox overflowed with desperate pleas, and often, quietly, anonymously, those pleas would find their way to Shadow, passed along by Lena or by Amelia herself, who now intuitively understood the unseen hand guiding her work. Marcus would study these new targets, these new battles, with the same meticulous detail he applied to any military operation. He wasn't solving all the world's problems, but he was creating cracks in the wall, showing people that the giants could bleed, that the unseen hands could be severed. He knew that systems of injustice were always trying to rebuild, always seeking new avenues to exploit, new weaknesses to prey upon. The fight for freedom and fairness was eternal, a marathon, not a sprint. But perhaps the real question isn't about standing up. Perhaps it's about how long we stay silent, watching others suffer, watching our communities fray at the edges, until we realize that every moment of inaction, every turning of a blind eye, makes us complicit in the very system we claim to despise. Pop Johnson didn't just save his auto shop. He didn't just save his town. He reminded us that sometimes the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't a badge or a gun. It's the simple, unyielding courage to say no. And somewhere out there, Shadow is still moving through those very shadows, a silent guardian in a world that desperately needs one. He's finding other towns like Harmony Creek, helping other people find their courage to stand up and say enough. Because that's the thing about justice. It doesn't just happen. It needs people. It needs sparks. It needs those willing to fight for it, even when no one is watching. If this story resonated with you, if you felt that spark of defiance, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales of justice, courage, and the unwavering spirit of those who dare to fight for a world where every spark can become a flame. Thank you for listening.